Peace and power, family. This is Dennis. I saw Noah. I have a special guest in the place to be. A special guest, not necessarily a guest to me or even our listening audience from the past, but we have a special guest in the place to be. Uh, that me and Dr. Ragland, Max T. Ragland, aka Baba Ali, will have, and we will dialogue and speak to you about today. Um, Dr. Ragland, if you could, and if you can, introduce yourself to the people, to the listening audience, and let's start off that way.
Okay, well, great, my brother. First of all, I definitely want to say, peace to the family, everybody who's tuned in, say this live broadcast this evening. Definitely want to thank brother minister, uh, Doctor Minister Sar for arranging this evening to have a very candid conversation about a topic that is that he and I have discussed um, on a number of occasions, and I would even add to say that it's been a topic in our communities, I would say, for quite some time. But definitely, as the brother said, no, I'm Dr. Max T. Ragland. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor. I've been practicing, I guess you might say, mental health for the last maybe 10, maybe 12 years now. And this is this is the work that I do. I'm always looking and trying to better understand how we can heal as a people. How we can um, free ourselves of some of the mental health challenges that we have been subjected to as a people in this country, as well as what we're doing to ourselves. So I'm very excited about this conversation, my brother.
All right, all right, all right. So yes, Dr. Ragland. I'm thinking we good. Family, if you can hear us, push one. Some hear us and we're loud and clear, go ahead and push one. Also, family, if you could go ahead and like and share and subscribe to the episode. But tonight's episode is confronting the white boogeyman,
Mm.
therapeutic approach to overcoming victimization. Let me say that again for y'all. I don't know why this brother's so bold, but Dr. Ragland. And I thank y'all for your patience, and we thank you for your patience. I thank you for
Yes,
your
yeah.
patience too, Doc. We had some technical difficulties getting started, or at least I'll say I take it. I don't want to give it to him because it was on my end. But we like to say we because we African. So you're gonna share in some of the
That's right, brother. That's right.
difficulties. We can't share in all the good stuff and not take the technical errors. So
That's
again,
right.
confronting the white boogeyman, a therapeutic approach to overcoming victimization. Could you let's get it started and why are we talking about this? You know,
Well, well, definitely. Let me add, I guess, to the opening presentation by saying that confronting the white boogeyman, a therapeutic approach to overcoming victimization. And I know that I've had many conversations where I've engaged in to where we as a people, individually, we as a people, we talk about uh, what has happened to us as a people, what has happened to us by our ancestors being enslaved, what has happened to us, say, by I would say our ancient ancestors who were invaded, say, in the continent of Africa when Africa was, say, at its at its zenith. So, and we've had many conversations because unfortunately, we as an African people, we're still dealing with, say, you know I'm gonna go beyond the word trauma. A sister, Dr. What is Maria Marni coined the phrase the Ma'afa.
hmm
So we're still dealing with the Ma'afa of what has happened to us as a people.
hmm
And I think as as someone who is a clinician, someone who is in mental health, someone who really study, examine, and research, uh, and really trying to better understand, not only the mind, or the mentality, say, of those who have perpetrated these crimes against us, but also how those crimes impact us as a people. So I definitely know that there are people out there probably exhausted by the conversation many times as we talk about, issues that pertain to black and white people. But also, I would add that until we get to a place that where we're able to, I believe, until we get to a place that where we're able to effectively uh, begin to overcome some of the many challenges that we've faced as a people who have been victimized in many ways, and in many ways victimized ourselves or each other. I think this is a very relevant conversation. It's a very needed conversation, and so that's why I was very excited about when you and I had this conversation about what is it that we could talk about on a Thursday evening that would be relevant, that would be candid, that would be very bold, provocative, and we both agreed, okay, well, let's go have one of those conversations where some people shy away from. So I would be the first to say that definitely we have been, what has happened is as a people we've been victimized, but there's also some victimization that we do to ourselves. And one of the things that we do to ourselves is that from a mental health perspective, we're still dealing with what I call the white boogeyman. This creature that has overcome us. Not all of us. So again, I want to be clear because some, the listening audience. So I'm not, excuse me, generalize this to say that all African people are still or in a place to where they are subdued, by this white boogeyman. Because we know there are many people. I would go say myself, yourself, people throughout, the Baltimore people, throughout the United States, throughout other countries, who really have gotten to a place within themselves to where that they are moving forward, within their own humanness. They are moving forward in a way that where they understand our history and what has happened to us, but they're not chained to it in a way that where they can't continue to to produce. They can't continue to grow, evolve, develop, impact the world in a very I would say in a very revolutionary kind of way. And so history bear witness to that, even in spite of the things that we've gone through as a people. We see many of our ancestors who have achieved very great things in life. I mean, things whether it's on a social level, an economic level, educational level. So definitely we have achieved in spite of what has happened to us. But we have to be honest with ourselves. There are still too many, I argue, our people who unfortunately has succumbed in many ways to that victim mentality.
So that what mentality?
To that victim's mentality.
To a victim's mentality.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
The white boogeyman.
Yes. And go ahead, brother. You're kind of breaking up a little bit, but go ahead. What would you say?
I'm asking you, what is the white boogeyman?
Okay. So when I talk about the white boogeyman, basically what I'm
Doc,
talking.
and I may go out and come back in, but you keep talking.
Okay. Yes, sir.
All right.
So when I talk about the white boogeyman, what I'm talking about is that the white man, because of his dominance, okay, his dominance. So one says, you see, one thing as a therapist, one of the things that we do as a clinician is that whenever we're dealing with a client who's in denial, we understand. I understand if I'm dealing with a client who's in denial, it's going to be very hard to help that client get to a place of resolution within themselves. What are they dealing with? If they're in denial about depression, if they're in denial about, say, anxiety, if they're in denial about, let's just say, the trauma experience. So whatever they're in denial about, they first have to accept the realization that there's something that's happened to them. It has impacted their life in a very, I would say, in a traumatic way, in a very in an unhealthy kind of way. They have to face that and they have to deal with that. So when I talk about the white boogeyman, there are many of us because of what has happened to us as a people, as an African people, not only just in the United States, but throughout the African diaspora. What has happened to us is that we will struggle to come to terms with that we have we were defeated. We were defeated in many respects. And what I mean by defeated is that right now, as we speak in 2021, is that the alpha male that controls the world, it is the white male. Okay, so we have to come to terms with that. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't succeed. Some levels. It doesn't mean that we can't build. When I talk about building, I'm saying that we can build nations. But I'm saying, but we have to get to a place in understanding what we're dealing with. And I think many of us, not only just on say within the United States, I think throughout the African diaspora, having to come to terms with that reality is that when you look around the world and who are your superpowers? We talk about the United States, we talk about Russia, we talk about, it's Germany, it is Russia, Germany, the United States, London, France, what is that? Italy, with some of the European nations. Some of those dominant European nations who have superpower status. And then we talk about within the Asian community, we talk about China, we talk about Japan, and we talk about India, who have these. When I talk about superpower, I'm talking about nuclear capability. Talking about who developed, say, warlike weaponry. That where in the event there's a conflict of some kind, that say if this country were, say, but say if a country were attacked by, say, a foreign country, they have the capabilities of or defending themselves. So when I talk about the alpha male, I'm saying one of the things, but when you look at the African continent and we look at our capability militarily, I would say I would say there's not one African nation on the continent of Africa can defend itself, say in terms of its military, say against, say, the European nation. That is the reality. Now, I'm not saying that we can't go to war, that we won't defend ourselves, but I'm turning between when we begin to talk about matching might for might, weapon for weapon. I'm saying we have not. We're not in a position to do that. And part of the reason why this has been because one was has been done to us by the colonization, but also our failure to recognize is that being able to unify, say, among ourselves in a way, because we our brothers and sisters on the continent who really at the bottom of their feet have some of the world's largest resources, natural resources that the world needs in order to survive, that literally that somehow people control that, but yet we haven't taken fully advantage of that to the degree that where we use it in order to to build, say, superpowers for ourselves. And so we really have to begin to examine it, and that's that very important. Why is that? Now I definitely understand that part of it has to do with this global world that we live in, and how the world's still being controlled by the banks. For many of the countries in Africa, they are they're beholding to these European banks. Also, we understand that many of these countries say have these enormous loans to where they have made agreements to where these countries like China and some of the other places and can come into these countries and pretty much have access to their resources in a way that where it's really it's really robbing these countries, many of these countries, and when we look at this has been going on for years. So when we talk about superpower, it's easy. It's not enough to say that of course we know we will defend ourselves, but to the degree that where do we have the capabilities of saying not only defending ourselves or becoming a superpower to where our posterity, our children and our children's children will have longevity in this world that we live in. So when I talk about these superpowers and being many times we're in denial, I'm saying unfortunately is that not recognizing many not being able to recognize this reality, and it is reality that we have to come to terms with. And until we come to terms with that reality, I will argue that we're going to be stuck in this place. We're going to be stuck in this victimization mentality because in order to be able to defeat, what Sun Tzu said is that you have to know your enemy, and then many times we're not ready to face or even to admit that reality. So it doesn't make us less. It doesn't make us cowards. It doesn't make us less than a man. It doesn't make us less than being able to fight for what we believe in. But any opponent, when he goes, whether in a boxing match or foot, or whether it's sports, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, whether it's boxing, MMA fighting, you have to know your opponent, and you have to know your opponent's strength, and you have to know your opponent's weaknesses. And I'm saying right now, in terms of on the world stage, unfortunately, as African people, I'm saying our opponent is strong in terms of militarily now. I'm saying militarily strong. They're saying he's smarter than us. I'm not saying that he's more courageous than us. I'm simply saying is that militarily, I'm saying his army compared to our army, I'm saying he has a dominant army because there's the Army, he has the Navy, he has the Air Force, he has the Marine, he has the Coast Guard, the National Guard, Army Reserve, and I'm saying, and they spend billions of dollars. They meaning the United States, Russia, the European nation, particularly the United States. They spend billions of dollars, say, on their military machine. This is why around the world there's known as the greatest superpower, say, in the world today. There's a reason why that is happening. It's because of the money, the investment that they make, the investment they make into their war machine. So I'm saying because they have convinced us. I mean, when I talk about they, I'm saying the politicians, the leaders of the United States. They have convinced us that we should buy into a what I'm gonna call a pseudo democracy. When I talk about pseudo democracy, I'm specifically talking about the form of government that where we buy into the things, buy into in such a way of thinking that once we embrace this form of government, this democracy, which it has its benefits, but I'm saying, but the true government, the true form of government, I've said this and I will say it again. The United States, the white male, he operate off of what is the guy's name? The Darwin's theory. Darwin's theory. Survival of the fittest. Only the strong will survive. Even though his rhetoric, his conversation, his political talking points give you the impression that it is about a democracy. It is about a republic. It is about humanity in the sense of we all are one. But when you pull that back, when you look at Russia, when you look at the United States, they operate from the theory of survival of the fittest. The strong will eat the weak.
Can you hear me, Doc?
Yes, sir. I can hear you, brother.
Hey, hold on. I know I've had all types of issues over here. I thank you for going, but I'm trying to figure out. So I've been listening to another thing, but I think I'm more scared of the Boogeyman since you're talking now. I mean, I'm trying to. Hey, you just really supported my. I've only heard blurbs, but I'm thinking you were saying that it's on a psychological level early on.
Mm-hmm.
In America, we struggle. I don't know. I'm thinking that when I hear Boogeyman, I'm hearing something that's not realistic.
Yeah. So I talk about the Boogeyman. So even though we know, I'm right. I'm glad you brought that up. So when I talk about the Boogeyman, of course, we see all the Hollywood movies. We see Jason was a Boogeyman. We see Michael Myers in Halloween was a Boogeyman. We see Freddy Krueger was a Boogeyman. Frankenstein in the old days, and the Wolfman. So these were considered Boogeyman people. That was they terrorized the city they was afraid of. So when I talk about the Boogeyman, so in one sense, the Boogeyman is unreal. But unreal to the degree that if we change our mindset, and I don't mean, of course, now we won't live to see this, but I'm saying if you look at the wealth of the African nation, if you look at the intelligence of African people. So you
Mm-hmm.
have the wealth, you have the land, you have the wealth, the resources, and then you have the intelligence. If we begin to think, if we begin to unify among ourselves in a way that we begin to think more of in a global sense, within unifying the African diaspora, say, unifying the African diaspora, in Brazil, in the United States, in the South America, the North Americans, on the continent, in a way that we're look. How do we come together, begin to organize among ourselves in order to become a world superpower? Now we part of the global stage, but what I'm talking about is that when you look at the European nations, even though they are rivals among themselves, but they come together upon they they come together in a way that represent white male dominance.
Mm.
I'm talking about the Russian. I'm talking about the United, the white American Anglo-Saxon. I'm talking about the British. I'm talking about the French, the Italian. I'm talking about the Greek, the Port. I'm talking all of these men, even though they have their separate nation, their separate land, but they have a common goal. How do they maintain their world dominance? And as African people, I'm saying part of what was done to us. So it's not that I'm saying there is an external piece that was done to us, through the enslavement, through the colonization, and what continued to be perpetrated against us. But also there's an internal a component associated with it, is what we do to ourselves. And that's why I said early on is that this thinking, this boogeyman fear is not something that all African people embrace, but what it's going to take in order for us to be able to get to a position to where we're moving from that victim's mentality and saying, well, look, there's work that we have to do. We have to really begin to talk about building a nation, but not just building a nation in terms of industrializing, in terms of jobs, opportunities, that thing. But I'm saying we have to begin to think about in terms of building the military, because I'm saying I would argue, if you historically, if you look at those nations that who were in power, they had a strong military.
So is that the therapeutic approach? The,
I would argue. I mean that no, that is an aspect of it, because one of the things that what's the brother name, the psychiatrist, Frantz
Frank Fanon?
Fanon said,
Mm-hmm.
is that one thing he said that part of the psychosis that African people are dealing with is the fact that they have been attacked. There have been violent attacks against them, but they
Mm-hmm.
haven't responded with violence. They haven't responded with violence. So because of that, that has created a phobia, a psychosis within the African people, because they're internalizing, not only internalizing the pain, but because they have not defended themselves in the way that they should have against the attack, they have internalized that, which has caused them to create these many personalities that we're dealing with today.
So I think about
Depression.
that. When I think about that,
Mm,
I would slightly disagree, but
okay.
I would also agree. I would agree. I wouldn't say that we haven't attempted to fight back, but
No, no, right, wait.
yeah, but I mean I'm talking about Dr. Fanon, but
Mhm,
but I would say that when trauma, we understand trauma
mhm.
is trauma. So what
Correct.
happens is what it is experienced when one feels like they can't defend themselves.
Yeah. Mhm,
When they feel like they can't defend themselves, they're overwhelmed. And I think what you're saying is many times we feel hopeless, helpless, and defenseless,
right.
hence creating a form of trauma.
Mhm,
Um, and a specific trauma, if we want to be more specific, in our community,
correct.
because we many times, as Dr. Joy DeGruy speaks about, in belief system and trauma in general, right? That
Mhm,
belief system now becomes off whack,
mhm.
offline. It begins to see threat when there's no threat. Not to say
Right.
there wasn't a threat and there's no threat, but it begins to exacerbate and see everything as threat versus what exactly is a threat.
Gotcha. Mhm. No, I agree with that. I mean, And I definitely agree with what you're saying is that, that's why I stated earlier is that I don't want to give the impression, in my presentation of, about the subject matter, that I'm speaking about all African people. This is why I say there are many African people, in spite of what's been done to us, has made great strides and has made great gains in identifying that, yes, we have been victimized. Our ancestors were victimized. We all experienced forms of oppression. We deal with racism. We deal with institutional racism. But in spite of that, some of us still has been able to one, acknowledge that reality and say, okay, now what is it that I can do to be able to begin to help myself, that where I won't allow what has happened to me to continue to keep me at a place that where I'm not able to function, say, at my highest level. And I'm saying, so there are many African men and women who have made those decisions. We have dealt with, I'm saying, in part, I believe that part of that I know that in order for them to be able to do, they first had to come to terms with their reality. And they came to terms with their reality was that it's not so much as what they being the white man or the white woman is doing to me, is what I'm doing to myself. They had to come to terms with that. It means then they will look, okay, yes, there have been laws that have been put in place that said that I cannot attend this school. But by the same token, there are schools that I can go to now and say that if I want to get an education. There have been laws that say that I can't come into this hospital, I can't work this job, I can't live in this neighborhood. But there are also laws that say that yes, you can, so that boogeyman that I talk about, that some of us fear, that we use to say, well, look, the reason why I can't go to school is because of racism. The reason why I can't get this job is because of racism. And in part, some of that is true because we do know institutional racism still exists, throughout, every aspect, every activity within the United States. But with that reality, I'm saying is there's still Black men and women who acknowledge that reality and still went out and was able to educate themselves, were able to find themselves in a way.
Can I jump in there?
Say it again, brother.
I want to jump in there and kind of just shake it up a little bit, right?
Okay,
So I think what you're saying, to take it further, and this is kind of like a question for you. I think that it'll go to a whole nother level, including what you're saying, and also, I'm not going to school because school is racist. In fact, Dr. Ragland, I don't want to talk to you, bro, because you're a part of the problem. I mean, you got a PhD and you went to their institutions, and this is what Dr. Joy DeGruy speaks about, that we begin to feel, we start, we start to see things that, well, I'm going to propose that we start to see things as threats that aren't threats. So Dr. Ragland and Brother Asar, y'all, you got the plaques on the wall, and school itself is racism. So why would I go to school? Why would I do that?
Well, see, and one of the things that you're absolutely correct in what you're saying, and but here's the thing: when you talk about math, math as a science, when you talk about engineering as a science, when you talk about biology, when you talk about arts, I'm saying the science itself is not racist. It is how it's being used. Now, did white men and white women take science and use it in a way to create a racist system? Sure, they did. Did they take math and use math in a way, say, to create bombs, to create, say, biological warfare in a way, say, to subject people, say, to colonize them? Sure, they did. So they took that science and used it in a way that would allow them, say, to move their agenda forward. So, but I'm saying, but the science itself, I'm saying math itself is not racist. So if I go into a school, if I go into a white university, so if I can go to Loyola, if I go to, I don't know, we'll say John Hopkins, clearly a white established university, and they're teaching math in that university, and my professor is white, and the professor put a math problem on the board. He put an algebra problem on the board. He put a geometry problem on the board. I'm saying the problem itself is not racist, even though the teacher may very well be a racist. But now I can take that same math problem, and once I begin to understand math, once I begin to master math in a way that where now I can take those concepts and I can bring those concepts to my community, and I can begin, say, to develop, and we'll say some very practical things. I went to this math class, so now I have an understanding that now maybe as an engineer, maybe I can create an automobile. Maybe I can create, build an airplane. Maybe I can create, say, something as simple as an iron that we use every day, because I have an understanding about engineering now, that where I can develop and create an iron that I can sell to my community, we'll say for $40 or $50 or whatever. But yet now a practical tool that we use in our community. So I'm saying I can take the math, I can take biology, and have an understanding about how the human body works, and begin to look at it in a way that we're so what are some of the things that are affecting us? High blood pressure, or sickle cell anemia, something that's unique, sickle cell unique to the African people, but the high blood pressure, those kinds of things. So how can I begin to take that science and that information and begin to come up with, say, treatment that allow me to be able to use that to help my people in a way that where now maybe the percentage of African people, men and women, who suffer from high blood pressure, that's going down. So yes, those institutions, of course, they are promoting their white value system, their principles, their teachers, their images. But I'm saying, but the science itself, I'm saying, get the science and use it for the betterment of yourself.
But you brainwashed, Doc.
Yes, sir.
I'm messing with. I'm the what they call the angel's advocate, or whatever they call it, right?
Yes, sir. So, come on with it, bro. I mean, it.
So, but you, how do I trust you, bro? You went to the. I hear you, but how do I know when you went to that institution that you didn't become a carbon copy of European in blackface? I mean, this is the trauma.
No, I get it. And you know what, brother?
So how do I know that you are a representative? When you took my, I'm talking about you, Doc. I'm talking about you, brother Asa. I'm saying when I came in here and I filled out this paperwork, you aren't just doing the duty of the oppressor.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right, because part of the trauma is that part of that trauma that we deal with is self-hatred. That's part of the trauma, and we can talk a little bit about that. But to speak to what you're saying is that when when I graduated from a white institution, now historically black college, HCB, what is it? Historically black college universities. I'm in favor of them. I think they're great institutions, and I think those who are fortunate enough able to attend a historically black college university, I mean, they should go, because from what I've been told, the experience is very different. I have brothers, my sisters and brothers went to HBCUs. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend one, but with the white university. So of course, as we already know, that when you attend universities, that those historically white universities, they're going to, as I share, they're going to promote their value system, their way of life. And so when I come from attend a white university, and someone say, well, you went to a white university, how do we trust you? You're a sellout. You need all of the adjectives that they ascribe to people. But what I'm saying is, look at my work, look at my actions. My work, my action speaks for itself. I'm saying, if someone wants to begin to attack Dr. Ragland and say, well, you went to the school, and because I went to the school, that somehow that made me working somehow for the white man. And I would say to you is that, yes, I would recommend to anyone, not only their universities, I'm saying, and this is where I really try to stress when I talk to my brothers and sisters. See, one thing about what the white man does is this right here. The white man, he or she always going to maintain control, say, over their institution. Now, it doesn't mean that they won't bring in other people to work within their institutions. They would bring in black men and women. They would bring in Asian men and women. They would bring in Hispanic men and women. They would bring in men and women from different backgrounds, ethnicities. They have no problem doing that. But what they do is they maintain control of those institutions, but also their value system. In order to be a part of their institution, you have to, in order to be a part of the institution, then you have to declare, in many respects, that you're going to serve the institution. Or if not, then you can't work for the institution. An example: the United States military. When you join, whether you a military, a uniformed soldier, or you a civilian, you have to raise your right hand. I, Max Ragland, swear to honor and protect the United States, country, United States, with no foreign and domestically. You have to do that. So now, once I make that declaration, everything that comes across my desk is always going to be in the best interest of the United States government and and their agenda. I totally get that. But by the same token, that in the institution, now I'm being exposed to information, about military information. Because like they say, there are many spooks who sat by the door. So sometimes people, they go up in those organizations to get the information, and they bring the information back to their communities in order to build their communities. Because where do you go get the information? You go to their institutions, because these are the so-called leading institutions. Now, my thing is this right here. You have many young brothers right now unfortunately they're not, you have the police department, you have the fire department, you have the military, all of these trained skills, vocations that these young brothers can benefit from to help their community. They won't take advantage for whatever the reason may be. So I want to be a police officer. I want to be a fireman. I want to join the military, where I'm going to get the best training. I'm going to have access to the best technology. I'm going to have access to an institution that's been around for over 200 plus years, that where they have refined their machining to the point that where they almost perfected this thing. So now I go to military. For 20 years I've been in the military. I've been whatever my MOS is, my military occupation especially is. Now I bring that skill set to my community and help build my community. I got the best training in the world. Now I take it, but see, the thing is, I kept my African mind. The problem is, a lot of men and women, black men and women, go into these institutions and they don't keep the African mind. So that's what the brother is fearing. The sister is fearing is that when they go to these institutions, they lose their African mind. Well, I never lost my African mind.
Well, now hold up now, Doc. Hold up. Yes, sir, that's you saying that. Yes, you are the one saying you ain't lost your African mind. Now, from my experience is, when you see something from a different vantage point, and when you now those papers that you got from the institution is the reason they now is being supported, that the reason why you don't see it is because you've been brainwashed by the white peoples in the institution. That's why you don't agree with us. So it's you didn't lose your African mind until you disagree with something, maybe because of experience that you had. Now, also, I got a few things. Dr. Asante, it was a post recently. Dr. Asante did a forward in a white woman's book. So, quote unquote, people are now saying that he is a sellout.
Yeah.
He also now going back to something you said. Now, what do we think about some of these? Like, how do we look at this when we now know that there are black professors, including Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben and Dr. Asante and so on and so forth, Dr. Ball, and all these people who said they're fighting on behalf of our people who are in the institution.
Yeah.
In these institutions, are they fighting for our people, or are they, as you said, have a great allegiance to these institutions?
Well, I'm saying, I think what again, I would say to those men and women who've taken the position that somehow, Dr. Molefe Asante, who's written I don't know how many books about the African experience, about African centricity, about African culture, about African way of life, that will young men and women, children, adult men and women who will benefit from, say, 100 years from now, if they go into the book in a very objective kind of way. Now they're saying, if their argument is that if Dr. Asante, he wrote a forward, say, from a white woman, and I think the book referring to sister. As a matter of fact, I bought when I attended a DOP conference, say, I don't know, back, I don't know, I want to say maybe 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 years ago in Philadelphia, I attended a DOP conference. And the book you're referring to, I purchased that book. I know the exact book. I can think off the top of my head, but I purchased the book. As a matter of fact, I met the author, the white lady whom they're talking about. Now, in fairness to the book, I haven't read the entire book, but I have read, chapters out of the book. I think the argument is that because she spoke about African, I guess, African centricity, because as a white woman, in the way that she spoke about it, and Dr. Asante somehow maybe agreed with some aspects of what she was saying, then somehow they felt as a white woman, she was not qualified to talk about African centricity in a way that should have been recognized by Dr. Molefi Asante. So if the argument is, what they're putting forth is that somehow that a white person cannot speak about African culture. A white person cannot speak about, say, African way of life. What I'm saying is that I think we have to look at it in a realistic way. If you're saying that because there are many white teachers, male and female, who teach in universities, and they teach about African history. Now, clearly they're not African because they're white. I'm not saying that, but there are white and I met some who know more about African history from education perspective. Now, keep in mind, we talk about someone who's being educated, than some black people know about it, who have not studied. So I'm saying education. I go back to one of my earlier points is when you're talking about educating yourself, we're talking about you have education. So I can educate myself to science, and I can go in university and I can teach science. I can educate myself, say, to building automobiles, and I can go build an automobile. That doesn't mean because I've educated myself, say, to science automobile, that somehow a person, say, who invented an automobile, that somehow I know more about the automobile than that person. It simply means is that I've studied the automobile, I understand the mechanics of the automobile, I understand the engineering of the automobile, and I'm able to talk about it in a very intelligent, in an academic kind of way. Now, if they're saying other people can't do that, then I'm saying that is a level of ignorance that we have to be very concerned about. Because what you're saying is that people does not have the capability of learning. Now, if they're saying that somehow Dr. Asante is saying that somehow because that white woman, because she wrote a book about African centricity, and that somehow made her African, then that's a whole different conversation.
Well, I think the argument is, one, Dr. Asante, we're talking about Afrocentricity, right?
Right.
And the theoretical paradigm that he has been noted for creating, which as a theory, right, for social change. Okay. And the conversation is that she wrote the book, okay, and he wrote a foreword in it. Right. Hence, he endorsed what some would call, I'm not even gonna use the terms, a white lady. I'm just gonna say a white lady. Hence, he's not African and he's a traitor. One, that's what they're saying, not me. Two, because the premise of her book, from my understanding, is that the European world at large, the world at large would benefit from practicing in principles, Afrocentric principles, that the world, humanity, itself would benefit if it could. The Western world what is dying and is on its way out could benefit from learning from ancient African tradition. Hence, also Afrocentric, how Dr. Asante has it framed in his theory, Afrocentricity.
Right. And see, I'm saying, and I agree with that. And I'm saying this right here again. I go back. If we think about it, for those who are historians, who are historians as who really uh, understand, has done the research and the work in trying to understand, African civilization, ancient African civilization. If I'm not mistaken, as I understood and as I read, is that our ancestors, I'm talking about ancient Kemet, is that the Greeks came and sat at the foot of our ancestors. Maybe some of our ancestors went into Rome and was a part of the Roman Council. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. So we were the first people upon the face of the earth. And people came, and those who came after us, the Greeks, and who came into Egypt to study at our ancestor temples, and our ancestors taught them. And now we know, I understand about plagiarism, colonizing, plagiarizing our history, plagiarizing, say, our science and our literature. No, I'm not talking about what they stole. I'm simply talking about is that those Greek men and women who came to our ancestors and learned from them, and when it took that information and it allowed them to build their civilization, which we know because of what they gained in Egypt, it allowed them to build that civilization. So let's reverse this right here. So now you're saying that those Greek men and women, Roman men and women, whomever, who studied in those ancient civilizations, who learned from our ancestors. So he's saying that we're the only people that can do that. That somehow that if we go to China, and the Chinese man and woman have an understanding about humanity, or have an understanding about technology, or have an understanding about the science, and we learn from them, and we come back and say, what the Chinese culture was able to learn from, I think would be a benefit, say, to the world, and in a rightful way. We wrong in doing that. I'm saying is people like that, I would say again, that is that white boogeyman that I'm talking about. That somehow they can't acknowledge the humanity in other people because of a fear of that white boogeyman that exists they haven't dealt with in themselves. Because to acknowledge someone else is to acknowledge someone else. It says to them that they have an inferiority. And I'm saying that comes from the personality that was created in us by the institution of racism. And we got to get rid of that. And this is what I'm saying. So my thing is this right here. If the white woman wrote something that Dr. Asante, who I would consider a learned man, a studied man, a research man, a scholar, and said, well, look, from what I read in her material, pretty much saying that she has tapped into something, because I understand what she was saying was African centricity. If the world embraced that, the world would be a better place. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Okay, so she was acknowledging, saying, well, look, the African culture or aspects of the African culture or the way of life with the African culture, all humanity can benefit from that. The woman not lying in what she's saying, because our ancestors said the very same thing, because people came to our ancestors and they learned from our ancestors. So the world is already benefiting from the African way of life anyway, because we were the first people on the face of the earth, and we were the one who civilized the world. So people are already benefiting from the African way of life. So what she said, she didn't say anything new. All she did was confirm what was already in place that was done thousands of years ago. And that's what I'm saying.
Now, I think when we're using frameworks, right? Because some people would say Dr. Santi's framework of Afrocentricity is a watered down version of African centeredness or Africanity, or so they would now differentiate Afrocentricity from African centeredness. And what they often say is okay, so there's some assumptions with some people who say they're more African centered than Afrocentric. Although in Dr. Santi's book, he said it the same thing. People, it's just a preference on how you want to use the word, But there are other elders even who try to differentiate Afrocentricity from. I'm using elders kindly, and they differentiate Afrocentricity from African centeredness. And what they say is those who really make that stark or that line in the sand often are under the assumption, because we understand theories have assumptions, right?
Right. Right.
So they are under the assumption that I don't care what you teach a white person, quote unquote, they are unredeemable. They cannot do any better. They have no humanity. In fact, they are not humans. So that's the theory of some.
Yeah.
So why even allow them to deal with our ancient science? In fact, in fact, I can hear the other argument is, if they've already been to ancient Kemet and got it, what did they do with it? So I can hear, counter arguments there. So what do you say to that?
And I would say this right here. Let's go back, because I've heard that white people, they're not human. They they come from another planet. I've heard all kind of ridiculous stories. And what I'm saying is, part of that reason is because I suffer from an inferiority complex. I need to feel good about myself. Okay. In order for me to feel good, because the very person who has harmed me, the very person who has enslaved me, the very thing that was done to me, that has caused this trauma, because they have caused the trauma inside of me, I have to make that trauma, I have to make that, not necessarily make the trauma okay, but I have to make how I cope with the trauma is okay. And the way for me to cope with the trauma is, I have to make the person who done that to me, somehow make him less than what I'm dealing with. So I make him less than by saying, you know what? He's not even a real person. Or that person, something's wrong with them. I'm better than him. I'm more intelligent than him. So now I feel good about myself. And so, but now it's temporary. But at least for that, so that temporary fix, it's like a drug. It's a temporary fix, because the reality of it is that I haven't dealt psychologically with the trauma that I've been subjected to in the way that I should have been able to move from that position that I'm stuck in. So now I attack this individual person and say, well, look, this white man right here, he's not even a human being. But keep in mind now, there's very same people who say that will also turn around and say, you know what? We were the first people upon the face of the earth. Our ancestors left the continent during a migration and went and moved over to Europe. And because of the great ice age that took place, say, thousands of years ago, and because of that frozen wall that were created, there was a metamorphosis that took place, within that region. And this way you begin to get the white man, which is true. But I'm saying, but that white man did not lose in that metamorphosis his ability. God did somehow separate himself from that white individual person. But what happened was, we're talking about a personality now. We talk about a personality that we're talking about thousands of years now, that where they live in a climate, they live in a part of a region where there is less vegetation, there's less sunlight. So we know all creatures adapt to their environment. So when you left the continent of Africa, a dark skin, curly hair, broad nose individual man and woman, you begin to migrate to other parts of the world. You get trapped behind this ice wall for thousands of years where there's less sunlight. So in order for you to adapt to that cold climate, now all of a sudden you growing your hair went from curved to straight because your body got to adapt to the cold climate. So now your hair grows long. Your broad nose that you once had in Africa, because your nose is broad because the humidity is very light there. So your broad nose allows you to breathe better in the place where the humidity is not as high. But now you go to in a cold climate where the humidity is very high. I'm saying where the humidity is very high. Well, now the broad nose is not needed anymore. They're on the small feet because it's very high there. So now that broad nose went from a broad nose and African nose through the metamorphosis of being of adaptive environment to a very small node. You
So
went from
are you saying, Doc, I don't want to keep you here all night. Are you saying that there's some humanity that could be left in those of European descent?
what I'm saying is not left. I'm saying it never. I'm saying the problem that we make as African people is
Mm-hmm.
we look at we look at the institution of slavery. We
Mm-hmm.
look at this what we'll call the Arab slave trade. We
Mm-hmm.
look at the transatlantic slave trade. We look at the bestiality of the white man, and somehow we say that person is void of spirituality. They're not a human being. What
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a personality. I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying God exists within all human beings because the way nature has it, when first man and woman walked upon the face of the earth,
Mm-hmm.
and all other human beings evolved out of those our ancestors, first human being. I'm saying God did not take his spirit out of those individual human beings. It is a choice that we made. I'm saying the same white man who came in and say, well, look, I want to enslave you, I want to hang you. There was another white man by the name of John Brown said, look, I want to fight for you.
Now I had a conversation with somebody. Actually, he's here on live, but they said, well, everything. So you use the example of John Brown,
Okay.
and what was shared with me is anything that they did for you, even John Brown, he had an agenda behind it. So it truly wasn't for the assisting black people.
Okay, well, say you're right. Say John Brown had an agenda. Say John Brown said, well, look, I'm going to help these black people, whatever his agenda. What I'm simply saying is, whether John Brown had an agenda or not, I'm saying John Brown was an abolitionist and he fought, and John Brown had a noose put around his neck and he was hung. Whatever his agenda was, he got hung with black folks. And what I'm saying to black folks out there, I'm saying, move away from the thinking that somehow that the white man, the white women you're dealing with, that they're not human beings. They are human beings. They have God is this, but the problem is that their personality, they have developed a personality that does not allow them to act on the God that's within them. They're choosing to be evil. Some of them choosing to be wicked. They're choosing to be ungodly. But by the same token, Viola Liuzzo, during the 1960s, I might be in the latter part of the 50s, early 60s, a housewife in Michigan was sitting in her living room when she saw the protests that were taking place down south in Birmingham, Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama, Selma, Alabama. The woman had 3 children and had a husband. She told her husband she had to go down south to participate, to help, to be a part of the civil rights movement. The woman left Michigan. She went to Alabama. She was given an assignment to transport, I think it was 1 or 2 black gentlemen, say somewhere through Lowndes County. The Klan pulled her over and they put a bullet in that white woman's head. Okay? They put a bullet in her head. There was a white woman who had 3 children, who had a husband, but yes, she said, well, look, I want to contribute because what I see what's done to black people is wrong. So that was the humanity in her that allowed her to say, well, look, I can't sit back on the sideline and not do anything. I'm simply saying is that if we continue as a people to buy into this false note that somehow, I'm not saying let me be clear. Clearly, there are many white people who are wicked in their behavior. They're ungodly, they're unjust, they're inhumane. History bears witness to that. But what I'm saying is, those people who are inhumane, I'm saying God still exists within them. Because when God said he breathed the breath of life in us, we were the first people on the face of the earth. And everybody came from us. And because they came from us, and God created the first, another thing. Being the first human being upon the face of the earth simply means is that in that part of the world, that part of the region where a hot climate, of course, as African people, we emerged out of that. And people came from. What I'm simply saying is that the white man, the white woman has the same thing that we have within us. It is a choice that they made. to enslave. It was a choice that they made to colonize. It was a choice they made to murder. It does not mean that somehow God created an evil person and God created a righteous person. The black man, black woman, we are the righteous people. The white man, the white woman are the evil people. I'm saying we are all human beings. We have free will and we choose. For every white person that you say that is an evil person, there are white people, then I'm not trying to defend the white people. I'm simply saying to the black man and woman, you have to move. You have to elevate your consciousness, man. We can't stay stuck in that place, because the reason why we stuck in that place is because of a victim's mentality.
Due to the trauma.
Part of the problem.
So due to the trauma, if I can go back, due to the trauma, when we experience trauma, let me just give an example. When we've experienced trauma and we suffer with post-traumatic whatever, stress disorder or slave disorder or slave syndrome or post-traumatic stress, causes us to be hyper vigilant, hyper aware, hyper alert, hyper aroused. So what happens is we begin to see threat when there's no threat. Not to mean that there's never a threat, but we begin to see threat in everything or that typically triggers or reminds us of a thing. So hence we cannot discriminate between one white person and another. So as some people say, I think who was it say, I ain't got no time to waste on it. But nonetheless, that was at some point in his life, but he also evolved. Okay, so another thing is, so I'm hearing that, and I thank you again, Doc. I don't want to keep you all night, and I'm sorry. I apologize for the technical difficulties.
No,
we will do this again, and but I do want to get to Brother Nani's question. But before we get there, I also want to say, I thank you. You touched on science. You said that. You said science itself is not racist, and again, some of us think that science was created by white people, hence is racist. I like to say when we talk about our scholars, we talk about Dr. Amos Wilson, we talk about Dr. Joseph Ben Yakiman, and we talk about even Asa G. Hilliard and so many more. They'll say you are stupid. Now I'm not that blunt. You are stupid to believe. Well, at least Dr. Ben would say that they are not human. That's what he said to somebody one time. Another person, Dr. Amos Wilson, says it the best. He talks about this boogeyman, and he says that this boogeyman that this trauma. He may not use the word trauma, but yeah, he says the trauma that we experience has us believing that white people are more powerful than they truly are.
Yes.
So, and then he also says that, okay, you can have, he also says, it doesn't mean you can't have a white good friend. You should have a white good friend. However, don't confuse white individuals with the white power structure, I'm going to say, because I think sometimes we get confused with the word white, and then that's why you have to differentiate between what you're calling white is whiteness, what some people will call, and oppressiveness, not necessarily only the people themselves. So hence, one can pick up Afrocentricity and say, you know what, if I live by these values and principles, they may help transform me.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%, but like you said, Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, just regular people. I'm saying, my thing is this right here, and I don't think I can be any clearer than this right here. When you have been traumatized, when you have been victimized, when you're hurting, when you're in pain, you have to. The brain will find a way to ease the stress of that pain. Even if the brain, I'm going to say the brain, it finds a way to relieve you of that stress. And what end up happening is that when we begin to make choices that we realize that help alleviate that stress, even though the choices can be not rooted in reality, but it is a temporary relief. This is why you have to bring them back to the reality of what they're dealing with. So an example is this right here. I'm hurting. I've been traumatized. And my father didn't hug me. So I've been, whatever the circumstances were, it impacted me in such a way I can't cope with life. So I go buy some cocaine, I go buy some heroin, I shoot in my arm, I start in my nose. It gives me a temporary fix. It gives me a temporary high. So for that moment, it's not the drug that I'm seeking. It's I'm trying to relieve myself of the pain that I'm feeling. And I'm saying it's African, some of us, not all of us, but some of us, because of what was done as African people, we have not come to terms with, to the degree of, what I say come to terms with is that acknowledging that we were hurt, we were traumatized, we were victimized, we were enslaved in most horrific way. And because of that, and we were told that we were nothing, that we were inferior, and we began to internalize that. So now, because I've internalized that, I have now to figure out that because of my shortcomings, because I haven't dealt with that internalization of that, i.e., maybe didn't make the choices that I should have made. So now I have to blame someone else. Now, not holding them accountable for what they have done. But what I'm simply saying is, but at the same time, is that I have to begin to say that what am I doing to myself? I grew up in Anderson, Alabama, in the born in the 50s, grew up in the 60s. I grew up in the belly of the beast. I grew up in the old South. I know what racism looked like. I know what it smelled like. I know what it tastes like. I know what it walked like. I grew up in the old South, not the new South, where black boys and white girls holding hands and doing all of that. I grew up in the other South. You lived on this side of town, and you lived on the other side of town, and y'all didn't mix. Simple as that. That's the South I grew up in. But also I began to internalize the Southern rhetoric that I couldn't achieve, that you wasn't going to be anything, that we didn't come from anything. I began to buy into that, and I began to act out in a way, such a way as I began to make choices to hurt myself, because I was hurting in many ways. Because I began to internalize the hate that I was experiencing. So I began to fight back in a young, immature mind in the best way that I knew how. But the choice I was making only made my matters worse, and it hurted myself until I was able to figure out, until I had my moment when I realized, you know what? I'm a child of God. You can't touch me, man. Because you say I'm this, but God say I'm that. You say I'm inferior, but God say I'm a superior human being. Once I submit my will to the Creator, and once I was able to shift my thinking from listening to what the white man was saying about me and really develop a relationship with the Creator and understanding within me dwells all things that I can overcome, even though my reality is dealing with, with the racism in Alabama, but still I was able to overcome once I began to change my thinking. So I'm saying I'm a prime example of that, but I wanted to add this part of this right here, what you were talking about earlier. But you had a question about what the 90s said. I'm simply saying this right here, my brother. And to those who were part, who was able to know who's out there, who's a part of this discussion, listening, what I'm saying this right here. We have to begin to advance our thinking and understanding in a way that move us from this idea that somehow any human being that does not look like us, that somehow there's some kind of mythical creature that was created by some other source. I'm saying that all of us are human beings when I say human being is, all of us have the will of God in us, black, white, yellow, red, and brown. Represent all of humanity. Every human being has that within him, but we have free will. Some of us will choose to do evil, and some will choose to do God's work. I'm saying historically, what the white man has done, he has chose to do evil. And because it does, so he has become the representation and the face of evil, rightfully so, because what he has done. But we have to stop at draw a line we have to draw a line in the sand to the point that works that somehow because of his behavior, that somehow that he is different from any other human being. I'm saying he has within him to be a right, because within their population, there are, whether they're doing it for ulterior motives, whether they're doing it for selfish reasons, I don't know what's in their heart. But what I am saying, evidence, history bears with, there are white people and white men who chose not to do evil. And I'm saying that in itself speaks. I mean, I'm saying that in itself, what's the word I'm looking for? That in itself breaks down. I'm using the word breaks down your argument, not yours. I'm saying people argument saying that the white men, because I'm saying if he or she is capable of doing right, then I'm saying your argument is it has flaws in it.
Doc,
Yes, sir.
I got some questions because I don't want to. Again, I want to let you go. I don't want to keep you, but the more you speak, the more I'm thinking. So I would like to assert this. This is my. I would assert that I believe that. Well, I'm not gonna believe. I know. Human beings are conditioned into behaviors, and some of these things are supported by ideologies, ideas,
Right, exactly.
concepts,
Right.
theories, and I would suggest that most people do more harm in believing that they're doing right than people who do harm for just the purpose of just thinking they're doing harm. People who blow up black people who go and do suicide bombers, people who do all types of abuse and all this, they in their mind, lots of times they feel justified.
Right.
They even if we think about the Catholic Church writing papal bulls and things of that nature to justify, to put in the mind that black people are less than, inferior, need to be saved. So there's a whole lot of conditioning that goes on. But two, how does knowing what you're saying, how does I think you kind of answered Anani's question, but I'll visit it. But this is my question: how does knowing, I think, is important? Because okay, Dr. Ragland, Brother Asa, I mean, I get it, but how does knowing this benefit me? How does now knowing that all white people, aren't evil, and maybe some of our allies, or maybe some not, the devil as the Nation of Islam may teach, or or what have you? How does that help and benefit me? And I'll just say this last piece before you go is that because I realize that people who deal with anxiety many times feel more secure being in their anxiety.
Right.
Many times you'll be like, well, you deal with clients, and they'll be like, well, I'm anxious because I wasn't anxious. So how does that benefit me knowing that white people somehow aren't all in the same basket? The devil, all of them. Some of them have some humanity. Some have helped us. That type of thing.
Well, I would say to the man and the woman, whoever she is, whatever ethnicity they are, if they're taking the position that somehow the same, whether the white man, the devils, or the black man and the black woman are inferior, and this is the white people as well. I'm saying in order to free yourself, in order to advance yourself, in a way that allows you to grow within your own humanity, then you have to recognize the truth. Jesus Christ said it best. Jesus Christ said that, oh ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So when we talked about being free, Jesus Christ is talking about that when you begin to believe a lie, by believing that lie, you keep yourself shackled and chained to a mindset, to a thought, to a perception that torments the soul. Because the people that walk around, that I would argue, maintain, that if you're of the mindset of the belief that somehow these are wicked people, I'm saying that you're shackled, you're bound, you're chained to a perception, to a reality that causes great turmoil for you. You cannot be free in thinking that. There's no way, because now you're saying that the Creator is a lie and you are right. When the Creator clearly said, I'm not talking about Jesus, but what the Creator, what he inspired Jesus to say is that, oh, ye shall know the truth. And it's the truth that said everything that you once thought in your life that was to be a lie, you found out to be true. You became a freer person at the moment, and you was able to feel that sense of freedom. If you believe that somehow, whatever, that doesn't matter. It can be very minute. It can be very large. If you believe that somehow, that you couldn't play football, or you couldn't catch a pass, you couldn't learn how to swing a bat. Once you was able to do that, you freed yourself, and that in itself allows you to gain a sense of confidence and freedom and you know and no and well-being. So what I'm saying is that clearly again, there are many white people, white men and women out there who do evil. My argument is not that they don't do evil things. Historically, history bear with. I'm simply arguing the point that somehow, in people believing that somehow they have a different genetic structure than what any other human being has. That somehow we have freedom of will, they don't have a freedom of will. We have a somehow they have a predisposition or a predetermination to evil, and somehow other human beings don't. And I'm saying that is false. And you choose. Now that's your choice to believe that. But
what
what
about
I'm
therapy?
saying, say it again.
I know we talk about white people, but what about you? What about therapists? I mean, I know we talked about this earlier, but I think, is therapy something you suggest for black people? Because I mean, we know there's a stigma, and we know that I don't, again, do you suggest? Because again, the white man, specifically the white person who looks, a certain way phenotypically, but what about you and me and other
Yeah.
therapists and social scientists? What do you say about someone who's interested? Because I've heard people say, no, don't go there.
Yeah. I'm a strong. See, I'm a strong advocate for for therapy. I'm not talking about therapy. I'm talking about I'm an advocate for someone who is having challenges in their lives in a mental health kind of way, meaning that they need help maybe in better understanding maybe their past, their experiences, what they're going through, whatever level it may be on. I'm saying if they have issues where they realize that their relationship with their mother or their father or their sister or their brother with their community, that something is impacting their life in a way that they it causes. I'm gonna use it causes worry, causes them to worry, it causes them to stress, it causes them in their mind, it prevents them from being able to function. I'm gonna use the word in a healthy kind of way. Then I would say yes. Seek out someone whom you trust, a mental health professional, whether a social worker, a licensed professional, a licensed clinical professional counselor, someone who understands mental health from a clinical perspective. When I talk about clinical, I mean they're able to diagnose, they're able to develop treatment plans, they're able to help you navigate your life experiences and help you to identify those areas that's causing you, I'm saying, stress and discomfort in your life. So yes, Black people, African people in the United States particularly, I can speak in a broader sense, but I know about the United States. I was born and raised here. I came up in this environment. I grew up in these institutions, and I'm saying yes, we need help. We need therapeutic help. We need it years ago, but we're coming around in a way. So I would strongly recommend to any person, Black, you cannot live in this United States of America, being an African person, and think that somehow you have not been touched in some kind of way what was done to us as a people. And I was strongly encouraged that you begin to explore that in a way to say, well, look, something's going on within my life. But I'm saying, but the key thing is being honest with yourself, because again, as Jesus Christ stated, oh, you should know the truth, and it's the truth is the only thing that's going to set you free. And as long as you walk around thinking that somehow you got alien people who live upon the face of the earth, just like the same way that white people think that outer space alien came and built the pyramids, they're suffering from a mental illness as well.
Dr. Joy DeGruy said they suffering from post-traumatic slave syndrome as well, because nobody goes untouched. And we also know this concept of what is it called? Vicarious trauma.
Vicarious trauma. Yes.
The person at one end of the gun, the person who's pulling the trigger is also traumatized.
I'm saying because as human beings, we were not built for that. You cannot take someone's life and think that somehow. Now, don't get me wrong. There are psychotic people in the world. There are people in the world who can kill. So I'm not saying people can't kill. Yes, they can kill. And I'm saying people, and there are people in the world who can kill, and they will think less about it than other people.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying, but it doesn't matter who you are. I'm saying it in the way that it impacts you is that it moves you to you becoming that monster, which is not good if you kill someone, or of course, and if you of course if you victimized by someone, it affects you that way. So she's writing what she's saying. You cannot live this life that we live in the world that we live in, and think that somehow your choices is not going to impact you in a psychological and in a psychological way. Now, again, some people, we talked about tolerance, we talk about temperament, we talk about personality development.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
some people are built to deal with certain things better than other people. Some
Mm-hmm.
people are not. Some people can tolerate something, but we all are impacted by this thing we call life. None of us get away from that.
And most people are not psychopaths. So I think that's what you're also saying. Most people are not psychopaths. Most people will not are not taking your life. And most people will, if they're not a psychopath, typically they have strong belief systems. And they believe that they are just in doing something to you. Just like many of us are under the notion of these false beliefs, these other people are also, they're no more special than us. They also get caught up by these false beliefs. In fact, I think you were also alluding to the idea or the reality is that in order to even take somebody like, many times you've probably experienced some level of trauma yourself, and a lot of that is brainwashing. In United States in general, a lot of these people who are even with Trump and so on and so forth, who they will take somebody's life. Yes, they will, because they are brainwashed, lost in the sauce, and they are a part of one of the biggest cults going.
See, one of the things that I would argue, brother, is this right. I know, like, so we got to shut down, but I would argue this right here is that when we're talking about people, it's just the choices that they have made, and one of the reasons why, see, I think sometimes we think of these conversations, not the conversations, but we think of these experiences happening within, within a time frame, I would say, of 24 hours. You're talking about something that's a mindset that's been put in place thousands of years. Okay, that where people are buying into the belief system and they become a part of your indoctrination and your socialization. So conditioning is very real. It's very real. So yes, we're human beings. We are intelligent, but we have a mind, we have a brain. But if I can't convince you, if I can't condition your mind to think a certain way, meaning, for example, if I create a way of life, I create an institution and say, as a white man, you're the superior human being. And I create that in all the institutions, your military, your education, your music, your labor, your entertainment, your sex, your economic, in all your major institutions, I create this reality that you're a superior human being. And I put this within the family structure. I put this within within the minds of the men and the women, of the children, say within that family structure. And I began to implement this over hundreds of years. But now the opposite of that, I create within that same institution that the people who don't look like you, they're less than you. So over the period of time is that, yes, I can get you to a place where when you see me, you don't see a human being, because I've conditioned your mind to believe that. So now I can kill you. I can take your child and sell take your child, rip your child from your arms and sell your child, say, to a plantation down in Georgia, and you live in Maryland. I can take your husband. I can put a rope around his neck, because I don't see you as a human being, because I've conditioned the mindset and how you think. Now, some of us, not us, but I'm saying some of them, even within their conditioning, certain things will trigger, and they would think, whoa, wait a minute, this is not right.
Right.
But now, because of the other condition that took place, meaning that even though now I'm feeling that this may not be right, but because if I act out on that, what can happen to me? So I'm going to value my life now over them. I'm going to value the person, even though there's something in me that is saying I shouldn't be doing this. So the condition of the mind is very real. It takes place. It has happened. But all I'm simply saying is that you can't take a person, you can't take a child or a human being, and you can massage the mind to such a degree that where you can't shape their thinking.
Yeah.
Because, and I'm gonna read something. I like to read something before we close. And y'all, and I don't have to tell you who the author is. You're gonna know who the author is just by me reading this. If you can't control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his action. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. If you make a man think that he is justly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told. And if there is no back door, his very nature will demand one. For those who may not know, that was from Carter G. Woolson, who wrote the book, The Miseducation of the Negro. So if you're hearing it for the first time, Google Carter G. Wilson, Purchase The Miseducation of the Negro, a very great read. I mean, written on what 23rd and 4th, when the book was written, remember the exact year, but I'm saying it's been around for years. And I'm saying, but I brought up simply to say this right here. What the brother is talking about, the very thing that we're talking about, is talking about controlling the mind of the human being, controlling the mind of the people. If you control their minds, yeah, you don't have to work with. I'm saying what we are reflecting within our own behavior is the fact of people whose mind has been controlled by an entity who has the power to control another person's mind. This is what we're dealing with. And I'm saying until we overcome that, then we will forever be trying to create a back door when there's no back door to go through. And the only way you do that, you have to free yourself with the truth. And you free yourself with truth by simply saying is, that white man is no different from me. And I got the same 24 hours he got, the same brain, the same makeup. The difference is that he's operating, what I said from the very beginning. In his mind, it's survival of the fittest. The strong shall eat the weak. Until we get that in our mindset, then we forever will be victims of this man. He ain't no boogeyman for real. But we made him into a boogeyman because we won't acknowledge the truth. He's just a human being just like me. And I can outthink him just like he outthink me. But if I give him these superpowers, then somehow, oh, he's not real. He's something else. No, that Negro just like everybody else. You hold him accountable like everybody else accountable. You take the power away from him with your truth. That's how you take the power away from him. I know what I'm dealing with, man. I'm scared of him. I killed that boogeyman years ago. But I'm saying he has a power, he's created a power position.
Yeah.
And I know that one man, black man like myself, I can't defeat him by myself. But with the help of all of us, I'm saying we can overcome this dude, man. But we got to move from the lie, man. We got to move from the lie. We got to move from the truth. On thing gonna set you free, man. I can't be in that place with you. If you I mean, being in that place where people are somehow it's just that perception of reality is just not real, man. I mean, I can't be in that place with you. I was in that place at one time myself. I know. That's what I'm saying. I know it because I can speak from experience. That's why I'm telling you what the people are dealing with. They're not ready to face that truth that the white, he did his thing, man. He did his thing. He's doing his thing. He's the alpha male, but he can be brought down. But he's not going to be brought down as long as you won't acknowledge the fact that he's just like you. He's no different. No superpower. He just made a decision in his mind. You know what? The great philosopher Malcolm X, by any means necessary. That's what he's doing. We got to get to that place by any means necessary. and we ain't ready to get there, then we might as well leave him alone. Because
Mm.
that's how he carrying it. Been carrying it from day one, by any means necessary.
So Doc,
Yes, sir.
you look like if you had a mic, you would drop it. But
Amen. Yeah.
hey, make sure you do some deep breathing after that one. You
Yeah.
look, this is couch talk. Look, we on the couch. You see the little couch in there. You see the couch in the background. Doc, you gonna do some diaphragmic breathing?
Oh yeah, I'm
Because
I'm right
and
now, baby.
just closing, I think I'm gonna let you do a final wrap up.
Yes, sir.
But bondage. What I'm hearing from you is that until we get past this false the falsisms, if I can say, we really or the falsisms is a symptom of the trauma, which
Yes.
keeps us in bondage because we understand being traumatized. I don't care on whatever level. As you know, my research is on race-based trauma,
Right. Right.
black identity and spirituality. But being traumatized on any level is a form of bondage. I
Yes,
avoid
sir.
things. I hide things. I make
That's
up
right.
things. I'm
That's right.
trying to deal with things, and I see things that ain't even there. And it's a very traumatic thing. If we can think of the trauma that we experienced in our families, and as we go through healing ourselves, and we realize lots of what we thought were cognitive distortions, they weren't really true. Not to say that things didn't happen, as you're saying, but
Right.
even on our familial level, some of the things that we start to see as more trauma and the attitudes of the people we see out in the streets, and we start taking out that pain on other people that reminded us of those people or what have you, is a
Right.
form of bondage. Because now I say things like, I don't like people, I don't like women, I don't
Right.
get
Right.
things like that. So it's a form of trauma because it isolates you. It creates walls, and instead of boundaries, it creates prisons.
That's right.
And just my closing remarks, just to kind of follow up what you said, is that I'll be honest. I went to the schools. I went to the blackest black school ever. I'm going to say that I went to the blackest black school, and I chose to go there in Sojourner Douglas College.
Right.
I chose to go there. I chose to go there when people say, "Look, bro, you can't. You go there, you're not gonna be able to do nothing." No, I went to Sojourner Douglas. Then I went to Loyola, who accepted my Sojourner Douglas all black school that came through the civil rights black power movement, which we didn't give enough respect on his name when it was around. I went there. I went to the white schools, and and to be honest with you, and I realized that there are some white people that are allies.
Yeah.
I had to be honest. In fact, they supported me and they support my research big.
Right.
But it's not saying they got the answers. I'm just
Yeah.
saying some of the stuff, some of the trauma has us seeing things otherwise, and it keeps us out of school. But
Right.
I
Right.
also want to say one last thing about this, is that what I realize about black people, because I think there's a myth that when you're black and you go to school, and in fact, some people will say that HBCUs are white, HBCUs are
Yeah.
white too. But nonetheless, what I'm really saying is, especially as people go through academia, through bachelor's degree, associates and bachelors and masters and doctoral degrees, especially the higher you go, a doctoral degree is trying to figure out a problem. And most black people, all the ones I know, I don't care if they got straight hair, pressed hair, curly hair, kinky hair, are trying their best to figure out a world to help us survive and thrive in.
Right.
Most of the people I know, I don't care if she still got her European name or she got an African name, they are there fighting on our behalf. Most of the people I know, their research is about us and how to heal us, how to get us out of these systems of white supremacy, get all these type of things, or even abolish it, or even call it out, or what have you, because it's advocacy in that. But nonetheless, I'm gonna turn it back over to you, Doc. Closing words. Let the people know how they can, keep up with you, catch up with you. Just closing on out. I won't say another thing unless you make me.
No, I would say first of all, as always, brother, thank you so much, brother, for inviting me to be part of the Couch Talk. I always enjoy a robust conversation, a candid conversation. You and we've been doing this for some years now. We have these candid conversation, robust conversation, a very provocative conversation, piercing, intriguing conversation. Because I'm a firm believer that Thought has to be, thought is progressive. We can't stay at a place. Our ancestors, when they civilized the world, when they gave the world arts and science, I believe they came from a place that those who were able to benefit, which many of them did, the Greeks, the Romans, all of humanity has benefited from what our ancestors did. And to me, that is the highest form, in my opinion, of the human excellence, where you can take something, you can share it with the world, and people can grow themselves in a way and benefit from that. They didn't, and so when I think about that, that whatever I may have in life, whatever position I may stand on, in terms of education or some other arts of science of some kind, is that broken I grow in the cesspool, pay skirts grow, we be three familiar. Got me. I'm reading what Cooler put up. What I'm saying is that I had to get to a place of understanding within myself. And that place I got to is that I have a choice. I have free will, obviously, but the choice is I can believe what was told. I can believe what people told me I was, or I can begin to do my own research, begin to better understand myself. And because again, when I talk about the Bible, it says, seek and you shall find. I wanted to know the truth. To put it very simply, I simply want to know the truth. God, what is the truth? That was my question. And I began to read, whether it was the Bible, whether it's the Quran, whether it's books, study different authors. And on my journey, I was fortunate enough to where I became exposed to different authors, different writers, different literature that began to open me up in a way that allowed me, to advance my thought even further. So now I developed this hunger for what the truth is. And what it has brought me, in all honesty, it has brought me full circle. Mm-hmm. What you did, it brought me all the way back to Kemet. And what I found in Kemet, when it brought me back to Kemet, was that our ancestors, what made them African was their humanness. It wasn't the pyramids. That was an expression of who they were. But what made them really Africans was their humanness. They were human beings. So they were able to see the world. Now, of course, they weren't dealing with the corruption, like we're dealing with today. But what I'm simply saying is that they were confident in themselves, that it did not matter what other people were saying or doing, because they were confident in who they were and what they wanted and what they wanted to do. They was confident in that. So they weren't intimidated by other people. They were not intimidated by other cultures, other groups, because they had tapped into something to themselves. They was free to be themselves. And for me, I'm saying, so how do I get to a place where I'm free to be who I am? So I'm not intimidated by a white man or a white woman or Asian man or Asian woman, because I know that the Creator dwells within me. Now, it doesn't mean that there are going to be those, you look into materially, who are going to, clearly there are people who are doing more success than material, if you look at it in a material sense. But when you look at it in a spiritual sense, the Creator says that there's no superiority among men. The only superiority among men is he who is most righteous. That's the only superiority. And that's what I strive. And that's what I strive to become. That's what I strive to develop within myself. That's the only superiority among men. Is he who is most righteous, he who is most close with the Creator. That's where you become superior. And so the message that I want to leave the people is that I go back to what I said in the very beginning. You have to free yourself. Oh, ye shall know the truth, and it is the truth that's going to set you free. Until you're ready to fully embrace that, you're going to forever be shackled to a very undeveloped mindset that was created by this institution, this thing that we call racism, white supremacy. And I'm saying, I'm not staying in that place. I'm free in my mind.
Ashe, Doc, I thank you again for coming on. Powerful closing. As my father says, if you keep that anger, hatred, which is being supported by those faulty beliefs, they didn't only get you when they enslaved you, they still got you.
Still got you,
Until
brother.
next time, family, we're going to check out. Follow Doc on his shows,
Oh yeah,
on his episode. Go ahead
yeah.
and
I
say
forgot.
some.
Yeah, definitely. You want to send a shout out, let people know that we're doing a show called The Bullpen. It's the last Sunday of each month. We did one in October. We did one in November. So of course we're in December now. So the last Sunday of December, we're going to do a part two, relationships 101, from prison to intimacy. Got a great feedback from some sisters and brothers that really like that. So we're going to do a part two. But definitely, you can check out The Bullpen Yard Call. We did the last one for the year with December. That was the first Monday of each month. So, but definitely going in 2022, just want to continue to do what I do. You can hit me up on, you can reach me by email. It's called Fresh Air, 112194 at gmail.com. You can reach me at Yahoo357 at Yahoo357 at hotmail.com. You can reach me at Instagram. There's men_behind_bars. Use on Facebook, Max Ragland. So definitely hit me up. I enjoy the conversation. Enjoy these kinds of conversations, but also, as I stated, 2022, I'm definitely really going to be promoting more of the work that I do. The book that I wrote, Transition Therapy. Of course, if you're interested in that, definitely send me an email. I can tell you more about that. Just working with brothers in prison, out of prison. But definitely, just hit me up in any one of those social medias I described. As always, look forward to engaging people. But definitely, it's about advancing thought. Our ancestors never meant for us to stay in that place where we was. It started there, but it is grown. It is grown, and thought is light. Thought is progressive. You can't stay. Never meant you can't contain if you want to anyway, because it's up to Creator. So it's not going to stay in one place. The world is going to move. It's going to move. But again, are we moving in a righteous way? Are we moving in a healthy way? That's the key thing. So, brothers, as always, I love you, brother. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for allowing me to share your space. Use your space, brother, with the bullpen, and always supporting me. And so definitely, whenever we can do another couch talk,
Yes,
just let
sir.
me know, brother.
Yeah. We had some technical difficulties. We're gonna get it started popping early next time. Dr. Ragland, again, thank you. You can find Dr. Ragland's bullpen on his YouTube station, Men Behind Bars. His YouTube station. Go over there and subscribe. Search him. Or you can go to my Facebook page or his Facebook page, and you can find some of the videos. And just go to his YouTube page and subscribe, like the videos. He has some powerful videos. Also, like, share, subscribe this. Like, share, subscribe. We're just getting back into this. If your likes really benefit, you like it up, like it up. I'm going to say put some likes up, but if you want to put some like down, that also helps us out as well. But go ahead and give the likes up. Go ahead, share it. Go ahead and say some comments at the bottom of it. I'm talking about on YouTube. Facebook's fine as well, but on YouTube, look at us, TNAT Holistic Wellness Center, and that will allow us to, build the audience and the algorithm and all that type of thing. Doc, again, peace and power. Until next time, family. Hotep, peace, all
Okay,
those
bro.
greetings.